Good evening and welcome to Scholars and Associates. Tonight we would continue with our risks and return. We started in class last week. So tonight we'll look at portfolio risks and return. Portfolio risks and what return? Portfolio risks and return. All right, so what is a portfolio? What do we mean by a portfolio? So a portfolio is the investment of funds into what different securities, right? So portfolio is the investment. Just want to simplify everything. It's the investment of funds into different securities. So it's like having a basket, and then in the basket you are having onion, tomatoes, garden eggs. So they are all within this basket. So the basket is known as the portfolio. It's known as the portfolio. So it's like a group of what? A group of different securities. What I say? A group of what different securities investing in a different securities, basically. Investing in what different securities. So what are some of the securities? We know we have shares. We have shares, bonds, and then what else? Shares and bonds, right?
Bills.
T-bills, eh?
Yeah.
T-bills and whatnot. So all these are what form part of the portfolio. So that is basically what a portfolio means. And also, we investing in different types of securities can also be known as what diversification. So diversification basically means that diversification is also the investment of what? Into different kinds of securities. Investment into.
Bye-bye.
Investment of funds into different what? Securities. Different securities. So that is the diversification. So there is a say that do not put all your eggs in one basket, right? If you put all your eggs in one basket, don't you think that when the basket just leaves, like when the basket falls, that means you're going to lose all your eggs. So that is why it's prudent to invest in shares, in bonds, and then in what? T-bills, like different securities. So that when one goes bad, you see that you have the other. So some diversification, we know that it helps reduce what? Risks. It helps what? Reduce risks. It helps in the minimization of unsystematic or diversifiable diversifiable or unique risk. Diversifiable or unique what risk. So that is what is known as what diversification, right? So investing in different securities, different what securities, right? So now, what are some of the types of securities? What are some types of security? Risks that we can talk. Types of risks. Types of risks that we can talk about. Types of risks. So we have the systematic what risk, right? Systematic risk. It can also be known as what the market risk. Then we have the unsystematic risk, or diversifiable, as stated earlier, diversifiable or unique risk, right? So the system risk, you know that it is in the system, it is embedded in the system. So far as you are a business in the country, you are going to face that risk. So far as you are a business operating in the market, you are going to what? Encounter that risk. So it's a systematic risk, the market risk. So we can give an example of the systematic risk. Example of systematic risk.
Risk-free risk.
Yes. Example of systematic risk is what? It is in the economy. So far as you are operating in the economy, you are going to face such risk. Example would be what? Inflation, right? So far as you are operating in the economy, you will be affected with inflation, right? Interest rates and whatnot, right? So they are embedded in the system. You cannot do anything about it. What I say, you cannot do anything about it. Then we have the unsystematic risk or diversifiable or unique risk. So we say that with unsystematic risk, that one you can, to prevent that, you can diversify your portfolio or your securities, right? So that is with respect to the unsystematic risk. That one you can do something about it, but with the systematic risk, it is embedded in the economy. You cannot do anything about it. What I say. So we say that you have to diversify in terms of the unique risk. So the unique risk is specific to a particular business or a particular industry. That is a unique risk. It is not a general risk in the economy. It is only with respect to one particular company or one particular entity or business. So with that, you can diversify. So you diversify so that you not you to prevent that risk. You diversify your portfolio. All right. So take note of these two risks and business risks. Then we can talk of the portfolio return. Portfolio return. So basically return from different what? Securities. So the return from different what? Securities. Different securities. That is what? Return from different securities. All right. So now what is the formula for the portfolio return? What is the formula for the portfolio return? So that is RP, portfolio return, right? Is the summation of the weight multiplying the return.
Same.
Summation of the weight multiplying the return. So that is the formula for the portfolio return. So what is anyone speaking?
Definitely, please can you explain?
Yes, your line was breaking. I don't know if I'm the only one who couldn't hear you.
No, so. None be that baba. We na me call from ma. Now go to.
Hey, who is that? Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you. Speak now.
You should explain the types of risk again.
Oh, okay. So, did I just close this in?
No.
Okay, so then I should explain the types of risks again. I said we have two types of risks: business risks. We have the systematic risks or the market risks, and then we have the unsystematic risks or diversifiable or unique risks. And I said the systematic risks or the market risks is a risk in the market. That one, so far as you are operating in the market, so far as you are in the country, you'll be affected with such risk. But with the unsystematic, unsystematic, diversifiable or unique risks. So they can use any of these terminologies. So you should just know that it is also the same as what diversifiable risk or the unique risk. So that one, it is not in the system. It is specific to an entity. It is what specific to what an entity. It is not a general risk, but it is just specific to an entity or an industry. And then the systematic risk is the general risk. And I did give an example of the systematic or the market risk as inflation or interest rate risk. So you see that inflation is in the country. Every business will be affected. When COVID-19 came, right, every business was affected. So far as you are in the country, so far as you are in the system, you are exposed to such risk. Unlike the systematic risk where you have control over. With that one, we advise that you diversify your investment, diversification. So with that, you invest here, you invest there, so that when one of the investment goes bad, the other will be there waiting for you. So you have the other for you, other for yourself. So that is the systematic risk and the unsystematic risk. I believe you are fine now.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So the portfolio return, so that is basically the overall return on the investment, on the what investment, which is a collection of various financial assets, such as the stocks, the bonds, and other securities, right? So this is the formula for the portfolio return. We said the summation of the weight multiplying the return. So the W is weight, your R is your return. So how do we get the weight? The weight is the respective investment, respective investment all over what? The total investment. Respective investment over the total. So the weight. That is what gives you the weight. So let's take an example. Example. Esther invested 2,000 Ghana cedis in stock A. 3,000 Ghana cedis in stock B. So the stock A and B. Okay, and then C. Let me add C. And 5,000 Ghana cedis in stock C. In stock C. Stock C. The following are the respective returns. So 12%, 15%, and 7%. Calculate the portfolio return. Calculate the portfolio return. Calculate the portfolio return. Right? Calculate the portfolio return. So, solution. So, what is the formula for the portfolio return?
The summation of the weight times the return.
So, that is the summation of the weight times what? Times the return. Right? So, what is our weight? How do we get the weight? The weight is what? Respective investment over the total investment. So, weight for stock A. What is the weight for stock A? Weight for stock A is the respect. What the investment for stock A?
2,000.
2,000 over the total investment. What would be the total investment? 2,000 plus 3,000 plus 5,000.
10,000. 10,000.
So what is our investment? What is our weight? What is our weight?
0.2.
0.12. Okay. Weight for stock B. What is the weight for stock B? That will be 3,000 divided by 10,000. What do you have? Weight for stock. 0.3, and then this will be 5,000 divided by 10,000, so that's 0.5, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So now that we have the weight for each of them, now we can find our portfolio return, which is the summation of the weight multiplying the return. So the weight is how much for with A? It's 0.2. So 0.2 weight multiplying the return. What is the return? The following are the respective returns. 12%, right? 12% for stock A. 12% is the same as 0.12 plus the weight for stock B, which is 0.3, multiplying the return. What is the return for B? That is 15%. 15%. That's 0.15 plus what is the weight for C? That is 0.5 times what? Return 7%. So that is 0.07. So what do we have? I believe you can see the difference between the portfolio return and that of the expected return, right? The expected return. That is summation
Yes,
of
please.
what is the expected return formula? Expected return formula is what? Probability times what return.
Yes.
Yes.
So this one is weight. This one
Weight.
is portfolio return. So give me the answer.
0.14. 0.104.
To 0.104. If you have to express it in percentage, that will be what? That will be, is it 10.4?
Yes,
10%.
please.
All right. So that is the portfolio return. That is the portfolio return. So now we are done talking about portfolio return. The topic is portfolio risk and return. We are done talking about return. So we are moving to portfolio risk. Portfolio risk and return. Portfolio return, we have talked about it. Now we are moving to portfolio risk. So the next subtopic is portfolio risk. Portfolio risk. So this is basically risk on investment, risk on investment in different what securities, in different securities. So portfolio risk is calculated using the Markowitz standard deviation. It's calculated using the what? Markowitz standard deviation, right? All right. So what it then is the standard deviation for a portfolio? What is the formula for standard deviation? I believe you know this is the symbol for standard deviation. A. Symbol for standard deviation. Right? This is the symbol. So standard deviation portfolio for rates. I believe you know that we use the standard deviation to measure risk, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So for a portfolio which has different types of securities, this is the risk, or this is the standard deviation formula. So the standard deviation is the square root of width of A multiplied by its standard deviation squared. This one is also squared. Plus width of B squared multiplied by its standard deviation. Hey, who is playing at the background? Plus 2 width of A, width of B, multiplying the correlation coefficient R of A and B, and the standard deviation of A, standard deviation of what B. So this is the standard deviation formula under a portfolio. So if you read the question, you know what the question wants. Whether a portfolio question, then you know the formula that you are going to use. Whether I'm going to use the portfolio risks to measure the risks of the portfolio, right? The portfolio risk formula to measure the risks. This is the portfolio risk or standard deviation of a portfolio. That is it. So where this symbol, of course, you know, is a standard deviation. The standard deviation. Then the RAB is the correlation coefficient. Correlation what? Coefficient. Correlation coefficient. And then the W we know is the what? Weight already. The W is the weight. So if WA means weight of A, is the weight. Do you know that this same formula that you are seeing can also be written as, or can be written as what? Weight of A, standard deviation of A, all squared. Because weight squared, standard deviation squared, when you put them in brackets, you can bring all squared, right? And then plus this one also, weight of B, standard deviation of B, all squared, because it's weight squared, standard deviation squared, plus 2 WB, right? RAB, standard deviation A, standard deviation B. All right, so let us go through some simple steps. Yeah,
Can you please scroll up? I want to see the formula, the main one. So please, I'm done.
Okay. All right. So now let's go through the simple steps for computing the portfolio risks. Let me give you the steps that will guide you. Steps for computing portfolio risk. So one, compute the expected return. Compute the expected return for each security. Compute the expected return for each security. What else? So here we'll limit ourselves to two securities as we've done, A and B, right? Yeah, so two securities. So limit ourselves to two securities. And then two, compute the standard deviation. Compute the standard deviation. The standard deviation for each security. Compute the standard deviation for each security. Then three, compute the correlation. Compute the correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficient for each security. Correlation coefficient for each security. So what is the correlation coefficient formula? The standard deviation formula is already given it that. And then the return has also been given. Then now this is the correlation coefficient. So let's see, correlation coefficient of A and B is basically the curve of A and B all over what? The standard deviation of A, standard deviation of B. Then what is our curve? The curve of A and B can be the expected probability times the deviation of A multiplying the deviation of B. And I believe I talked about deviation. Deviation is basically the deviation of A would be, say, let's say return of A multiplied by the minus the expected return of what? The A. So the deviation of B is also return of B minus the expected return of B. So that is what I mean by deviation for the two of them. That is what I mean by the deviation for what? Each of them.
Please, I have a
Then,
question.
okay.
Please, the correlation coefficient, the formula I saw was standard deviation on expected return.
That one is um what's the name for coefficient of variation.
But the COV is what?
Is that?
The COV that I've written here, that one is what?
That is covariance.
Okay.
Covariance. Let me even write it. So this is the correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficient.
Okay.
The one you are saying standard deviation over this one, that is what's the name called? Coefficient of variation. It is different. If you don't take it, it will confuse you. So
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Welcome. And the last point that I would give is calculate the portfolio standard deviation. So that is the formula I gave, portfolio standard deviation, RP, right? That is the portfolio standard deviation. Let's see if we can take an example so that you follow the steps to see how it works. All right, so example. SNE Limited invested 50% each of invested 50% of his investment in stock A. Invested 50% each, let me say each, invested 50% each of his investment in stock A and stock B. The returns and probabilities for these stocks are shown below. All right, so we have state of the economy, and then probabilities, then we have the returns, right? Let me Okay. So good 1/3. Good 1/3. And then stock A 7%. B, the B is let me -7%. This is 17%. And then normal. Good normal is also 1/3. 12%. 7%. And then bad is 28% -3%. So with this, calculate the portfolio. Calculate the portfolio return and risk. So you can see that this is a combination of the risk and the what return. Portfolio risk and return. All right. So what is the first thing that we do? What is the first thing that we do?
We calculate. You compute for the expected return for each security.
Exactly. So we compute for the expected return. So here the expected return. Why are we using expected return? We are using expected return. I believe in the last time I told you the expected return because we have probabilities in the question, right? So this is a future. Future was the future expected rate and return, right? So that's a future something because of the probabilities. Because of the probabilities in the question, so expected return. Remember, you saw that when there were no probabilities, we use the average return, right? So this
Yes, sir.
includes probabilities. So we are computing expected returns. Assuming you meet the question, there is no probability, you calculate the average return. Okay. So first step is to step 1, compute the blah blah blah. Compute the expected return for each security. So expected return, what is the formula for the expected return?
Probability times the return.
Probability, so summation of the probability multiplying the return, right? Probability is multiplying the return. So what is the probability for good? Probability for good is 1/3 multiplying the return of good. What is the return of good? Return of good.
So please, we didn't
So we do for
specify
stock A, right?
the.
So I think let's indicate clearly that we are doing for stock A. Yes, the one speaking, what did he say? Someone just spoke.
Yeah, it was Rhoda.
Yeah, Ruda, what are you saying?
Oh, so please, it's fine. I just gave the formula for it. I was giving the formula.
Okay, but someone was saying something that blah 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 before I came in. Anyway, let's continue. So probability times the expected. We are doing for stock A, right? So the stock A, 1 plus what, plus the probability times what is the return for normal. Normal is what, 12%, right? 12% normal, 0.12 plus probability that is for bad. What is the probability for bad under stock A? 28%. So 28 is 0.28. What is the probability? What is the expected return for stock A? What is the expected return for stock? Dev means
Please, 0.11. 0.11.
0. What?
11.
0.11. The deviation, someone asked in the chat board that what is deviation. I think I explained that. I don't know whether I've answered your question. So this is the standard deviation. Is the difference between the return and the expected return, right? Return and the expected return. That is a deviation. So the probability for good is 1/3 multiplying the return. This is under stock B. Stock B, right? So stock B is 17%. So that's 0.17 plus 1/3 multiplying the return for normal, 7%. So that is 0.07 plus 1/3 multiplying bad, which is negative, right? Negative 0.03. Okay, so what is the answer?
Please, 0.07.
0.07. So that's
Yes, please.
7%. All right. So are we done with the step 1? Are we done with the step 1?
Yes, please.
All right. So what is the next step?
We have to compute for the standard deviation for each of the activities.
Standard deviation for each security. Okay. All right. So what is the standard deviation of How do you get it? What's the formula for the standard deviation for each of the securities?
Can you use square root of variation? Variance, sorry.
Yeah, square root of variance is standard deviation.
Okay.
And so how do we compute for the standard deviation for each of the securities?
Square root of
If I'm to use the symbol, that would be what? Square root of standard deviation of t, right?
yes.
And what's the formula?
Square root of probability.
It's square root of
Yeah.
of what?
Return
Return
minus expected return
expected return
squared.
Yes.
Yes. Times.
All
No,
squared.
sir.
Yeah. I'm listening.
It's probability
All
into
right.
bracket R times the expected all squared.
You see,
So
to
probability
look at the question, it should be question specific. This question has probability, right? So probability makes it a future one. Assuming there is no probability, you would have said R minus, when it's the average return, then it will be what? N minus 1. Then you know that that's the historical, right? That's the historical. But this is probability, and the probability, you bring the probability as well. So R minus what? Minus the, expected return of, minus the expected return, right? So here,
all squared.
it's all squared. Good, all squared. Sorry.
But that's what I said. I was bringing the probability at the end.
I didn't hear. I didn't hear that part. Oh, sorry.
Don't worry.
Okay. So this is the standard deviation for A. So let's compute that. Then we come to B, right? So A, what would be a standard deviation? What would be the standard deviation? So 1/3 probability, 1/3. Return. What is the return for A?
Negative 0.7.
Negative 0.7. Negative 0.07. Yeah, 0.07.
Yes.
Yeah. Minus what?
The expected was 0.11.
So what will be our expected return? Expected return for A.
Yes, 0.11.
Alright, that is good. Are you following? Because you are doing for A, we use the expected return for A. Don't come and use the expected return for B. Take note. So that is what? 0.11, right? 0.11. Sorry. All squared plus 1/3. What is the return for the
0.2.
0.12? 0.12. So 0.12 minus expected return is 0.11 all squared plus 1/3. Then what is the expected return? 0.3.
0.28.
Don't say 28. After a point, you
2
mentioned the 28 minus what? 0.11 squared. So now, what are we getting? Usually, this is much faster in a way, but if you don't take care, you might make a mistake here. So I sometimes use the table. I remember, so last week I used the table, right? Did I use the table last week? Yeah, I used the
Yes, sir.
table. So,
Yes,
but
please.
this evening I'm using the T, but it's still the same thing. So the table will be probability here, the returns will be here, and then R minus R bar. Then you come and do another one, R minus R bar all squared. Then you sum this up, right? It's still the same thing. So if you want to use the table, I think the table is more safer than this. But this one, if you make a mistake, hey, you get it wrong. Oh. So to be on the safer side, you do the table one more simple, step by step. If you don't punch this thing well, wahala for you. Oh. So what do you have?
0.1143.
0 point what?
1143.
Confirmed? Is it confirmed? Okay. So then the standard deviation of B, is also
Please, this is wrong.
1/3. Is that wrong?
The figure is wrong, yes.
What did you get?
It's 0.14306.
0.143.
0.1431.
Hey, opening the figures.
No,
Okay.
this one is correct.
What is 0 point?
0.1431.
Okay. All right. So in percentage will be what? Is it 14.31? Okay. So 1/3 times what is the return for B? Return for B. The return for B.